This is the Redmi Note 13 Pro Plus 5G, which goes for 495,000 naira or $380 for 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of internal storage. And here is the predecessor, the Redmi Note 12 Pro Plus 5G, which goes for 425,000 naira or $330 for the same memory configuration. Now the question is, should you upgrade from the older device to the newer one if you already own this old one? And secondly, is it a better value for money to go for the newer one directly if you don't own this one? Let me help you answer those questions, and so without taking much of your time, yo guys, let's get started. Before I proceed here, I would most times call the Redmi Note 12 Pro Plus 5G the Note 12 and the Redmi Note 13 Pro Plus 5G the Note 13 in this video. So we're on the same page and you don't get to confuse the names I'm calling here with the smaller devices, the Note 13 and the Note 12, okay? Okay. Firstly, the similarities here include the fact that these are both 5G smartphones made out of glass for the backs, and they feel about the same. And in fact, the rears here have this curve to them that make them really comfortable to hold in the hands. They both have these IR blasters, stereo speakers, dual SIM trays, no memory expansion slots. All the ports and IOs are actually placed about the same positions with these devices, with the only exceptions being that the Note 12 here has a side-mounted fingerprint scanner, while here is an optical in-display fingerprint scanner, and also you get a headphone jack on the Note 12, but that's not present with the Note 13 here. These differences with the design don't end here. You get an eSIM provision for the Note 13. There's no platform for housing the 13's camera module like you have on the 12 here, and you have this larger LED flash for the 13. Also, the 13 feels lighter, more convenient to hold. It also has the better physical attributes such as an IP68 rating as opposed to IP53 from the Note 12. Generally, as far as the design, they are quite close, but for the build quality here, I can tell you that the Note 13 Pro Plus 5G is the better design. A slight yet needed improvement for this here. Now, speaking of fingerprint scanners, the optical under-display or in-display fingerprint scanner on the Note 13 Pro Plus here is quite sluggish when compared to the physical scanner you get on the predecessor. Hence, the win goes to the Redmi Note 12 as far as this tech. They both come rocking a stereo speaker, even though it is quite difficult to differentiate between these speakers. I could a few times notice that the Note 13 was cleaner at higher volumes, but this isn't that reason you should pick one over the other. I'll say the Note 12 here has about 90% the same sound quality as what you get from the Note 13 speakers. For displays on these devices, both have a 6.67-inch size AMOLED and OLED panel, and they refresh at 120Hz with Dolby Vision and HDR10 Plus features. One thing I noticed right out the bat was the fact that the colors felt a little bit punchier from the Redmi Note 13 Pro Plus 5G. Maybe because it's able to express up to 68 billion colors as opposed to 1 billion colors from the Note 12, or because it had this higher pixel density, 446 ppi against 395 ppi, and it owes that to the higher resolution you get on the display. So this is more like almost QHD in terms of the resolution on the Note 13, and this is Full HD plus thereabout. Another thing you'd notice about the display is the higher screen to body ratio on the Note 13 because the display curves to the sides. There's also Gorilla Glass protection for the smartphones. You have Corning Gorilla Glass 5 for the 12 and you have the Corning Gorilla Glass Victus for the 13. And as far as being usable outdoors, the 13 is the one to pick because this has 1800 nits at peak brightness, while the Note 12 has 900 nits at the maximum brightness. Generally, the Note 13 Pro Plus 5G has the better display, but that by no means makes the display on the Note 12 a bad one. I mean, this is a really great display, but this is slightly better. So for processing and speed here, the 12 here has a Dimensity 1080 chipset on 6nm, which is one from MediaTek, and on the 13 here you have the Dimensity 7200 Ultra on 4nm. There's no other way to say this. The processor on the Note 13 is simply better in all aspects. Better battery efficiency, better gaming performance, better CPU performance. It's simply the bigger brother and an upgrade here. It just felt smoother, snappier, and more on top of its game, like literally. The gameplays on the Note 13 lack stutters and lags. Also, the memories used for these devices are different. You have UFS 2.2 for the 12 and UFS 3.1 on the 13, which is the faster type of storage as far as these smartphones. You can check out the Antutu and Geekbench scores for the smartphones to compare. I know the numbers don't explain everything, but they go a long way to let you know what to expect. Now out of the box you get Android 12 on the Redmi Note 12, but mine has been upgraded to Android 13, and out of the box here you get Android 13 on the Redmi Note 13 Pro Plus 5G with MIUI 14.1. So both of them are actually on Android 13. Now I remember the Redmi Note 12 series was being promised about 2 years of OS updates, and there's a promise for about 3 years of OS updates on the Redmi Note 13 Pro Plus 5G. So this will go further into the future, and that's if you're thinking about longevity of these devices. So cameras, right? Right. On paper, these two smartphones have the same number of cameras and specs. There's a 2 megapixel main sensor, an 8 megapixel ultra wide, 2 megapixel macro lenses, and 60 megapixel front facing cameras for both of them. Now, for the rear cameras, for human shots, I somehow did prefer the photos I got from the Redmi Note 12. Not totally, but in terms of the skin tone I got, I think I prefer the Redmi Note 12, but that doesn't mean you get the better detail from here, because the detail from the Redmi Note 13's shots were better and this was more realistic. The skin tones on the Redmi Note 12 actually did play more into my bias, but that doesn't mean it's the better camera. This gives you the better details, more truer to life photos, and less of the grain effect you get on the skin tones from the Redmi Note 12. Now when you zoom in here, you notice that you have softer photos from the 12, making the Note 13 better. For the portrait mode here, I still prefer the skin tone, but that's just a mid thing on the Redmi Note 12. And yet another thing I did prefer from the Redmi Note 12 is the fact that the edge detection seems to be better, at least for this photo. Now when you got to other kind of photos, I prefer the Redmi Note 13 because the photos were more vibrant on the Note 13. Same thing is seen for the ultra wide of this same shot. This theme continues in several other shots, and you can clearly see the better dynamic range, white balance is more accurate, and in general the better photo from the Redmi Note 13 Pro Plus 5G. Over to the front-facing camera, I prefer how the Redmi Note 13 handled the exposure most of the time. You also did get better details, but one place where I tend to tilt in favor of the Redmi Note 12 was the front-facing camera portraits. I still saw the better edge detection from the Note 12, but as far as dynamic range, you still have to pick the Redmi Note 13. Honestly, these selfies are not really far from each other. Over to the video side of things, there is a maximum of 4K recording for the rear cameras and 1080p for the front-facing cameras. Just like the photos, the videos have the same attributes, better exposure handling from the Note 13, better white balance, and an overall better video camera on this device. So as far as the cameras on here, the Redmi Note 13 Pro Plus 5G has the edge. The Note 13 and the Note 12 here both have 5000 mAh battery capacity, which will take you into the next day or at the very least for a full day of use. I didn't really have an issue using the smartphones as far as the battery life is concerned on here. There's nothing to really complain about with the smartphone. Even though the processor on the Note 13 here is the more efficient processor in terms of power, I didn't really notice that difference using these devices. Both are really amazing smartphones. A plus here is the fact that you get a 120 watts charger from within these boxes of the smartphones, and it's said to charge these devices from 0 to 100 in 90 minutes, but from my test here it was more like 25 minutes to charge from 0 to 100. This is a tie for the batteries as far as I'm concerned. For the same memory configurations, 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of internal storage, there's a $50 or 70,000 naira difference in price here. 495,000 naira for the Note 13 here, and 425,000 naira for this older device, the Redmi Note 12. So if you had to pick between these two smartphones, the clear winner is the Note 13 Pro Plus 5G. And for $50 more, you're getting a better display, a faster processor, a better build and design in my opinion, faster memory speed, a longer update into the future. You have the option to have an eSIM on the smartphone, which is not available on the Note 12 here, and you also have a better camera system with the Note 13. So if you do not own any of these devices, I'll advise you go for the Note 13. But let's say you own the Redmi Note 12 here and you want to find out if it's a worthy upgrade to get the 13. Well, the answer isn't that straight to the point. Now, if you already own this device and you want to upgrade to this one and you have the means to do so, by all means get the Redmi Note 13. But I'm not someone who's about telling people to always upgrade their smartphones every year, because I think the Redmi Note 12 is a really good device, and for that reason I don't think a lot of people should upgrade from this one to this other one. You just might want to wait for the Redmi Note 14 Pro Plus 5G, which would be a huge leap from what you have from the Redmi Note 12 Pro Plus 5G. Yeah, that's what I think. So let me know your thoughts if you agree with me in the comment section below, and also do check out my comparisons with the latest Samsung devices here, and also dedicated reviews on these devices. Catch you all in the next one. could be that day.